Alrighty, this is Algebra Period 2, and I believe this is Thursday, and I'm still in Indy. So, here's your lesson for today, and we're going to talk about solving two-step equations, and we're going to start getting into some of the multi-step equations. So, you should have your template out on your desk and be ready to go. Alright, notice that this equation, let's go ahead and write it. Okay, so notice that this equation contains multiplication, because right here you have multiplication and addition. Makes it two steps. Equations that contain more than one operation require more than one step to solve them. Identify the operation in the equation and the order in which they are applied to the variable. Then you use inverse operation and work backwards. Okay, so let's write this down. Operations in this equation. Okay, so we have 3.95 times C, so that's multiplication, and then we have plus 1995. Okay, so when you read this equation, you have from left to right, just like you read a book, you have multiplication, and then you have addition. Okay, to solve this equation, you must work it backwards. Okay, so if we work it backwards, we start right here. And then we do the inverse operation. So what's the inverse of addition? Subtraction. And then what's the inverse of multiplication? Division. Now, I know that when you have solved two-step equations in the past, you know you need to subtract first and then divide, but I want you to understand the conceptual meaning of why you need to do that, okay? You read the equation left to right, write down the operations. To solve it, you must work backwards. So, backwards, inverse of operation of addition is subtraction. Backwards, inverse operation multiplication is division. Alright, so let's try some of these. Okay, so you have 18 equals 4a plus 10. You always start with the variable side. So we're going to start with the right side. And we're going to do the inverse. First you have 4 times a plus 10. So we're going to work it backwards. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. What you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other. So I have 8 equals 4a. Then remember, we're trying to isolate the variable a, so the inverse of multiplication is divide. So a equals 2. See how neat that is, guys? Try to do your equations like this. Alright. Number 2. Start with the side with the variable. You have multiplication and you have subtraction. So we're going to work it backwards. So we go this way. Inverse of subtraction is addition. So I have 5t equals negative 30. No calculators yet. But if I have a negative 32 plus 2, I subtract and keep what I have most of. So that's negative 30. And then again, we're trying to isolate the variable t. So I see multiplication. Inverse of multiplication is division. My answer is negative 6. Now, guys, you can check this mentally if you want. Substitute negative 6 in for t. 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. Negative 30 minus 2 gives me a negative 32, so I know I'm right. Alrighty, now we're looking at decimals. Same thing. Start with the side with the variable because the goal is to isolate the variable y. You have multiplication and you have subtraction. Inverse of subtraction is addition. Now, when you add decimals, you must line up your decimals. No calculators yet, so work this out. have 7.2 equals 1.2y. Inverse of multiplication is division. Okay, if you can't do this mentally, guys, you need to work it out to the side. But if I take 5, 12 times 5, I know is 60, so I got to go up 1. So, when I divide 7.2 by 1.2, I get 6. And again, if you need to do it, work it out to the side. Okay, now we're going to get into fractions. All right, I'm going to show you this first way, the way that you probably have done it in the past, where you're just using the inverse operation. And then I'm going to show you a way where you can use your least common denominator to cancel out those fractions. Because if we can cancel out the fractions, you have less of a chance of making an error. For some reason, students make errors when they're dealing with fractions. So, let's just do this like we normally would. You have y divided by 8 minus 3/4 equals 7/12. So when we work it backwards, we're going to use the inverse of subtraction, which is add. Okay, so on the left side I have y over 8. On the right side I got to come up with the common denominator. My common denominator is going to be 12. So 4 times 3 is 12, 3 times 3 is 9. Once I have a common denominator, I add the numerator. 7 plus 9 is 16 over 12. Okay, let's go ahead and keep it in proper. It'll be easier to work with. Now I have y divided by 8. Inverse of division is multiplication. So I multiply both sides by 8. I put this over 1, these cancel out, so I get y. Okay? If I put 8 over 1, I can use my cross simplify, and I can divide them both by 4. So my numbers are easier to multiply. So 16 times 2 is 32. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay? Now, in algebra, we can keep it improper. So my answer is 32 over 3. Okay? All right. Now, guys, whether you like this way or not, I need you to start.
Keandre Winford, if you're in the building, please come to the office. Keandre Winford, please come to the office.
Trying to practice using this way. It's going to help you later this year in algebra. It's definitely going to help you in geometry when you get to algebra 2, okay? This is called the least common denominator to clear fractions. Okay? Not for sure if you've seen this way before, but I want you to try this. And in your practice tonight, I want you to try this way, not the other way. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at denominators 3, 4, and 12. What's going to be our LCD, least common denominator between 3, 4, and 12? If you can't remember how to do that, look at your multiples of 3. Look at your multiples of 4. And then your multiples of 12. What is the least number that they have in common? So it's going to be 12. Okay? All right, let me go ahead and erase this. All right, so if our LCD is going to be 12, what we do is we take 12 and we multiply the left side. And then we multiply the right side. So guys, I want you to put your pencils down and I want you to watch me do this. Okay? All right. So I have to distribute here. Okay? So I have 12 times 2, which is 24 over 3. Well, what's 24 divided by 3? 8. Okay, bring down your R. Now, I have 12 times 3/4. So 12 times 3 is 36, divided by 4 is 9. So what I did was I took 12 and I times it by 2/3. That's 24 over 3, which equals 8. Or you can cross simplify. You're still going to get 8. Cancels out that denominator, okay? Then I took 12 and I times it by 3/4. 36 over 4, that gives me 9. All right, now on the right side, well, my 12s can cancel out to 1, right? So on the right side, I get 7. And you've just canceled out that denominator. You have less of a chance of making an error if you can do it this way. And that's why I want you to practice this way with your practice tonight. All right? Now we have a simple two-step equation. Work it backwards. Inverse of addition is subtraction. Inverse of multiplication is division. Now, when you have a rational number, a fraction that can be simplified, I want you to go ahead and simplify that. So it's actually going to be negative 1/4. Okay, I asked you to put your pencils down, so I'm going to give you a second to write that down. And we're going to do another one. In class, to make sure I don't run out of time, why don't you go ahead and pause the video and let me go ahead and show you number 6. Number 6 will be the last one for today, and then you can practice it. Okay, so for number 6, we need our least common denominator. Okay, between 5, 2, and 1. Well, it's going to be 10. So, I need to take the left side of this equation and multiply it by 10. And then I need to take the right side of this equation and multiply it by 10. Okay, so we distribute. So 10 times 2x is 20x. 20 divided by 5 is 4x. 10 times 2/5 is 20/5. Well, that equals 4. Now we're going to distribute the second one. Well, what's 10 times a half? What's half of 10? 5. And then 5 times 10 is 50. You should be able to take it from there. You're going to add 5 to both sides. And then you're going to divide by 4. And we can leave it in improper form. Just make sure it's the simplest form, but you can leave it improper. You don't have to change it to a mixed number. And that's it for today's lesson. So class, I'm going to be checking when I come back on Monday. I need you practicing the LCD method because on your quiz and on your test, I'm going to make you use this LCD way. All right, y'all have a good one.